Good morning, I'm Sunetra Choudhury, political editor of the Hindustan Times, bringing you all that you need to know about COVID-19 on Wednesday, the 12th of August. First up, I'll look at the numbers. In just the last 24 hours, we've seen 61,540 new cases across the country. The number of deaths in the last 24 hours have been 836, taking the total number to 46,185, which brings us to our top story. Is the third wave of cases. The first wave was in Wuhan, the second wave in Europe. The third wave, which we saw here in India and the US, is that now flattening? Well, numbers in the US and the Brazil seem to be suggesting a plateau. Of course, this does not apply to India, where the number of new cases is still rising. It's not just India, but also Colombia, which is seeing a rise in daily infections. With the flattening of the third wave, however, we can't rest easy because every time the curve has flattened, we've seen the emergence of the infection in new places. Not just that, in other places where the infection seems to have been under control, like in Spain and in Peru, we are now seeing resurgence of cases. Which brings us to our next story, which is what India is doing to control the spread of coronavirus. And the Prime Minister had a meeting with all those worst affected cases, and they are talking about tracing and contact tracing within the next 72 hours. The other thing that the government and the health ministry has told states is that they have to follow up false negatives by tracking them and also monitoring them and also doing an RT-PCR test. There is a concern about antigen tests, which are 25% of the tests being done across the country, that they are throwing up a lot of false negatives, and that's why for many of the symptomatic and even asymptomatic cases, the government says should be monitored and perhaps followed up with an RT-PCR test, which is the gold standard of testing. Russia has now announced their vaccine against the coronavirus. Sputnik 5 came after 2 months of human testing. However, the speed with which it has been announced and the fact that the results or the evidence of it hasn't been shared with the world has raised doubts among experts. Vladimir Putin has already announced that his daughter has been inoculated with this vaccine. Speaking of vaccine, the testing and the vaccine protocol body in India is meeting today. It is headed by Dr. V.K. Paul, and they are going to meet with all the stakeholders today. Among the issues to be discussed, what are the vaccine protocols to be followed here in India, and most importantly, which are the groups that are going to be given the vaccine first. Most likely it is going to be the very young and the elderly, who are the most vulnerable to be infected by the virus. And finally, actor Sanjay Dutt complained of breathlessness and was taken to Leelavati Hospital in Mumbai. While he tested negative for the COVID virus, when the doctors tested him and tried to get the reason of his breathlessness, they found him diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. Those updates to be followed on hindustantimes.com. You can track all the news through the day.